We're in that time where we have to begin to savor everything that Josh gives us. We're going to savor that. Thank you, Joshua. I wrote these words 22 years ago in a book I published. 22 years ago. It was summer 2001, and I was a recent theological school graduate and had just finished writing the last few pages of my first book when I read something that rocked my world. I had been analyzing various religions in America over the last few months using Leo Rostin's Religions in America, a religious almanac, had gone through 24 or so faiths, not finding one that met my theological, psychological, or sociological needs. I was near the end of the book when I saw the heading Unitarian Universalism. And I thought, what the hell is that? And I began perusing the chapter. And what I read changed my life. It rocked my world. I read a summary of Unitarian Universalism, its history, its principles, its legacy. Could not believe such a religion existed. And as I read the words, tears came down my face. This was manna from heaven, and I ate every word. I examined the chapter over and over until my soul was full. I read about a religion that did not believe in a specific creed, but did have moral principles that upheld the worth and dignity of all human beings. I read about a religion that recognized that there are many truths in life, and that each religion has a unique but similar message to share. I read about a faith that respected Buddhists and humanists, Taoists, agnostics, Christians, Muslims, and atheists, among other belief systems. I read about a phenomenal faith that asked its adherents to freely find their spiritual path and celebrate the journey. I read about a religion that honored differences, a religion that had historical figures associated with it. I read about a belief system that almost exactly matched mine. And I said to myself in that wonderful moment, I'm going to be a Unitarian Universalist minister. And the quote continues. I never wanted to be a minister. In fact, I wanted to be a sportscaster. No special event occurred in my trek to ministry. I didn't have an Apostle Paul-like experience where you see a bright light or hear a voice and know it's the voice of God calling. Instead, there were many signals and events that brought me to accepting my call to be a minister. As in some Native American cultures where the community calls its shaman to serve as healer, teacher, and preserver of the tribe's traditions, my community of friends, family, and associates called me to ministry over the course of about 10 years. And yet, even with all of the affirmations at the time that I learned about Unitarian Universalism, I was a motherless child, a man with a theological degree, $40,000 of postgraduate educational debt, and no place to minister. I was wandering through a philosophical wilderness which was lonely. I was frequently depressed, and as I contemplated the meaning of life, I had left the United Methodist Church months before over theological issues and had long since dropped out of their path to ministry process. I'm truly thankful for the writings of Joseph Campbell and Daniel Quinn and John Shelby Spong and Timothy Freck and others whose books saved my life. They showed me I wasn't alone in having what I thought were radical religious ideas. I had gone from being a religious fundamentalist to a religious liberal freethinker in those 10 years, had gone from condemning my first girlfriend's dad to hell to not believing in a literal hell. But I needed a place to live out my beliefs. I was a church person. I grew up in church. Where would I go? I ended up at Davies Memorial Unitarian Universalist Church. And so it happened. I was lost, but now was found. I didn't know I was searching for Unitarian Universalism, but I was. I found my life's call, and my journey through the wilderness was over. I was reborn that day, and that's why the tears flowed. I knew this is what I was searching for. I was going to be a Unitarian Universalist minister. And that's how I got here. And my first congregation was in Camp Springs, Maryland. Davies Memorial, named after the person you heard the reading this morning, Reverend Dr. A. Powell Davies. He was a very popular minister in the 50s. He served for a long time at All Souls Church Unitarian in Washington, D.C., and he had hundreds of thousands of members in the area. In fact, he spawned a lot of the congregations in our area. These smaller churches like Davies began to pop up in the 50s. And what they would do was they would prepare their whole worship service, and then when they would get right ready for the sermon, they would tune to a radio station, and they would all, which was tapped into the All Souls Church, sermon, where Davies was giving a sermon, and they would all sort of sit around and just stare at the radio, listening to the sermon of Davies. And there are these old pictures in Davies where you can see the members dressed up like the way people did in the 50s with their cigarettes in their mouth, and just staring at the radio, and it's got flowers over it. It looks like they're like worshiping something, but it's just wild to watch. But this was early UU in the 50s. This was really a big growth period for us when religious liberalism was really at its height post-World War II, this kind of optimism. People were, a lot of communities making pretty good money with the federal government helping out subsidies and that sort of thing. And so the liberal religion, this religious optimism that we can create a world, a good world where we can eliminate evil, this was a very popular notion then, and he had a big following. He was a rock star. But during the 50s, 60s, Martin Luther King would come along and provide his sort of analysis of religious liberalism, and he sort of saw it as overly optimistic, that it did not go deep enough, because when he looked at it and he read about it and he studied our great thinkers, Thoreau and Channing and Emerson, King studied all of them, and he liked what they had to say. But when it came to racism and discrimination, he just felt they didn't go deep enough to deal with the evils of racism and discrimination. In fact, he would see those as their own kind of dogma. That although they were saying that we are the free church, we are the dogma-free church, they were still held in the dogma of prejudice. And that's still where we are today, trying to aspire to become the church we say we want to be. And that's why we're here, to become more radically welcoming, to share our message with people who are looking for only what we can provide. We're called to be faithful stewards of this living tradition. I like that. We're a living tradition. It's not dead. It's not supposed to be stuck in dogmas or creeds. It's alive. It refreshes itself. This is what liberalism truly means. And so we radically welcome the stranger, but we're not there yet. We don't represent all races, ethnicities, all socioeconomics. We're not there yet. Why did or do you choose to be a part of this faith tradition? What compelled you? What beckoned you to the call of religious freedom? Why has this faith been so important and instrumental in your life? How has this faith called you to be generous of spirit? And for me, this faith reminds me of a scripture: to whom much is given, much is required. And although this faith has many flaws, many vices, it has many more virtues. And for me, it's personal. This faith saved my life. It didn't save my soul, it saved my life. It gave me purpose. So I'm compelled to be of service. I always quote this Marvel slogan because it's just so good. With great power, they say, with great power comes great responsibility. With great freedom comes great responsibility. To be a part of this kind of tradition that at least is trying to be inclusive, to be pluralistic in a world that is so full of dogma, polarization, that we're at least trying. And how can I try? How can I do more to help this faith tradition? And it's really easy through my time, through my talent, through my treasure, through your time, through your talent, through your treasure. Your time coming to church on Sunday, even when you have to spring forward. Coming for spiritual rejuvenation and spiritual growth as much as you can, because it's good for the soul to participate in the life of the church, to come together, to hear bad news together. It's easier together, quite frankly, to mourn together, to laugh together, to sing together. There's a power there. To come to our congregational meetings when we have them, to vote when we're asked to vote. Our time. We share our talent. We volunteer in small or large ways. We show up for community work together. We come clean our congregation. We go out in the community to do cleanups. We serve on committees or groups in the church because we want to sustain, maintain what we have, because it's so precious and so rare. We do it because we know many hands make light work. And even though we don't talk about it a lot here, we give of our treasure. Because we know we all have to do our part to create financial abundance for this community. My wife and I gave $5,700 last year. But we will increase to $6,300 for the new church year starting in July. It's an 11% increase. I don't say that to boast. I say that because I want you to know that I am leading by example. I will not ask you to do something I'm not willing to do. And I'm not giving because, you pay me to be here. Thank you, you do. You pay me well. Thank you. You take care of me, and I appreciate it. But actually, I'm not a member of the church. I'm not required to give. But I give because I love this community. I love our staff. I love our people. I love our values. I love us, Heather Millar. I know you're on Zoom. I looked. I love us. That's for you, Heather. So I put my treasure where my heart is. And more than that, this religion has stood the test of time for me, 23 years. Through raising 3 biological children, 2 stepkids. The last one just turned 21. He can drink. Oh my God. Difficult divorce. Two cancer diagnoses, myself and my wife. I lost both of my parents. Had illnesses. We lost a tragic loss of one of our members. All of these trials and tribulations, all of them I can't name. But this religion has stood the test of time for me. I feel stronger, more resolute in my faith. How about you? And I've never felt alone or abandoned in this journey. I've always felt there was somewhere, somebody I could turn to. And that's why I give. Is it your heart where your treasure is, or treasure where your heart is? I think they both work. Your heart is where your treasure is where your heart, no, I don't know. I truly believe that this congregation can have more financial resource than it knows what to do with. Hasn't happened. So much financial resource that we'll have to invest in more and more community projects, give more grant money away, and just keep starting projects because we've got to do something with this blessing. That's the vision I have for us. Now, we can get there easy because when you do the math, it costs about $2,100 annually per member. There's 430 of us. That pays for everything without fundraising and all the other stuff we do. You can do the math, 2,100 times 430, that'll give you the number. I see some of you pulling up your phones. Good. That's about $175 per month per member. We currently get about $130 per month per member. And due to this, and people in varying financial situations, we get that. We have to offset this by doing fundraising, applying for grants, using our endowment funds. We can't keep doing that. But if we can get more of you to give more, we can get there. Now, don't mistake what I'm saying. We're a very generous congregation. You know, people give from $1 to $20,000 a year. But we are asking you to consider a 7% increase. We are asking you to consider the $175 per month cost per member. Consider what this religion means to you, because you're the key to the present and the future. The key to open new doors of possibility. Now, if you can imagine with me these keys to open doors to creating a Children's Defense Fund Freedom School, summer school in the local community. A key to open a door to support the homeless in 2025 through winter relief. The key that opens the door where we become the go-to venue for anti-racism, inclusion, diversity, equity training in the state. Or future things that are hopefully coming, keys that opens the door to a nature-based preschool. Actually, that's coming. A key that opens the door to an outdoor amphitheater on our campus. A key that opens the door where we finance affordable housing in Annapolis. A key that opens the door where we're able to give microloans to help people start businesses. A key that opens the door, I don't know, to our own health and wellness center. A key that opens the door to our own community garden. A key that opens the door, I had to put this in, to our own community, to our own track and field program. It's something I really want to do. And why not? A key that opens the door to our own bed and breakfast venue. Whatever we decide, we can do. What do you want to do? It's about abundant thinking, not scarcity thinking. Why do the fundamentalists get to have all the fun? So we're in that time of stewardship. I don't talk about money a lot, but it's that time of year. And I don't see money or asking for money as a burden. It is a gift. It is a wonderful thing to think about how you're going to be generous. It is a spiritual practice. What will you give? Hopefully from the deep reservoir of love in your heart, because we can do amazing things together. We're not in the business of saving souls, but we're in the business of saving lives, bringing hope, inspiration, joy, and light to the world. And the world needs Unitarian Universalism now more than ever before. Are you with me? Amen.